If we look at history, the most significant accident in skydiving occurred due to a small mistake. The magnitude of this mistake became evident when 18 skydivers jumped from a plane, realizing there was no way back. After leaping from the plane, the excitement of all 18 skydivers turned into horror, as there was no route for their return. Unfortunately, all 18 experienced skydivers couldn't apply their years of experience in this situation. In this incident, 16 skydivers lost their lives, and the 2 surviving divers who narrated the story sent shivers down everyone's spine. Today, the world remembers this incident as the Lake Erie Disaster. Lake Erie is the 4th largest lake in North America, located in the state of Ohio, USA, and the 11th largest lake globally. To the south of Lake Erie, 13 kilometers away, there is a small airfield named Tonawanda Airport. On the day of August 27, 1967, 30 skydivers arrived at this airport because they were offered a free flight. The plane used for this event was a B-25 bomber, modified by a private company that extended the offer of a free flight to these skydivers when the B-25 bomber, originally used in World War II, was repurposed for this event. As the divers started boarding the plane one by one, space began to run out in the B-25 bomber. Due to the overweight issue, the pilot at the last moment selected only 20 divers. This selection was based on the divers' experience and skill levels. The 10 divers who survived the selection process felt regret for not being chosen, but little did they know that the pilot's decision was going to save their lives. The plan was for the B-25 bomber, owned by the airport, to take off and ascend to 20,000 feet, circling over the airport. After reaching this altitude, it would drop the 18 divers over the airport before going higher. The last 2 divers would jump from a height of 300 feet. All these divers were supposed to land back at Tonawanda Airport with the help of parachutes. Due to unfavorable weather conditions, the flight couldn't take off in the morning. However, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the B-25 bomber took off. All the divers on the plane were very excited because they not only got a free flight, but also because it was their first experience jumping from a bomber plane. After the takeoff of the B-25, a small Cessna 180 plane also took off from the same airport, staying at an altitude of 12,000 feet, to observe the skydivers' challenges. It was supposed to be captured by the camera on the B-25, where the divers were present, spiraling upward. Due to the bad weather, the pilots of both planes were connected with the nearby air traffic control tower, which was informing them about their locations. Finally, an hour later, the B-25 bomber had reached an altitude of 20,000 feet. The pilot radioed the control tower and provided his location. During that time, there was no GPS technology, so in case of bad weather, the pilot had to seek assistance from the control tower. The control tower informed the B-25 pilot that he was 9 miles away from Tonawanda Airport. According to this information and based on the map, the location of the B-25 was near the drop zone. About 1 minute later, the pilot of the Cessna 180 also contacted the air traffic controller and provided his location based on the B-25. This was because due to bad weather, the Cessna pilot couldn't see the B-25. The air traffic controller informed the Cessna pilot that he was 9 kilometers behind the B-25, meaning that if the B-25's location was 9 kilometers from Tonawanda Airport, the Cessna's location was also 9 kilometers behind the B-25, and Tonawanda Airport was 18 kilometers away from them. Minutes later, at an altitude of 20,000 feet, the B-25 pilot again reported his location, and this time, the controller informed them that they were now above Tonawanda Airport. Upon this, the pilot signaled the 18 skydivers to jump. The small mistake that could have cost the skydivers' lives had actually occurred. Currently, no one is aware of this mistake. At this altitude, the temperature was 30 degrees Celsius, so all the skydivers had added an extra layer to their jumpsuits. All the skydivers jumped together from the B-25, aiming to synchronize their free fall experiences. At that moment, they could see a layer of clouds beneath them, and after crossing the clouds, they deployed their parachutes. They all started to enjoy their free fall, forming a formation. However, when they crossed the thick layer of clouds, their excitement suddenly turned into fear. What they saw was not the ground beneath them, but a vast expanse of deep water, Lake Erie. At this point, their altitude was approximately 3,000 feet, and everyone quickly deployed their parachutes, hoping to land somehow on the water near the shores, perhaps with some luck close to the border. Unfortunately, it couldn't be, as the place where they were landing was at least 10 kilometers away from the shore. They had thought that after landing in the water, they would immediately remove their harnesses, swim, and wait for help. However, things didn't go as planned. Due to the weight of the layers of warm clothing they were wearing, swimming on the water's surface was virtually impossible. 2 divers had already removed their shoes and unnecessary weight before landing. They were the only ones who could swim for a while, and later they were rescued. The remaining 16 divers, who were unable to swim due to the heavy clothing, had to wait for rescue. Unfortunately, they couldn't survive with regret, and their bodies remained unseen by anyone for several days. The last body was recovered a week later. This incident created headlines worldwide, and an investigation team was formed to determine the real cause of the accident. The key question was where the B-25 had dropped them and whose mistake it was. The air traffic controller claimed that at the time the B-25 dropped the skydivers, they were above Tonawanda Airport, within 10 kilometers from Lake Erie. He believed that due to strong winds, the skydivers drifted towards Lake Erie. The investigation aimed to find out whether there was an error in the pilot's judgment or if external factors contributed to the tragic outcome. It was indeed possible that the skydivers had drifted over Lake Erie, but even if we consider ATC's statement for a moment, it implied that the winds had drifted the skydivers a total of 20 kilometers, 10 kilometers from Tonawanda Airport to Lake Erie, and then another 10 kilometers into Lake Erie. Experts, when considering the speed of the wind and the altitude of the dive on that day, calculated that the maximum drift the skydivers could experience was around 5 kilometers. This meant that there might have been some inaccuracies in ATC's statement. This was the crux of the dispute between the B-25 and the military. The pilot of the plane claimed that they were given the wrong location. Eventually, the investigation revealed that at the time when both pilots had asked ATC about their location, there was a shift change in the controllers. The new controller provided B-25 with the wrong location, stating that it was actually the location of Tonawanda Airport. So, when the pilot of B-25 was told that they were above Tonawanda Airport, they were actually above Seneca 180 Airport, and Lake Erie was beyond. This miscommunication led to the mistake where the divers and the pilot, relying on aviation charts, failed to identify the target and jumped without seeing it. In total, 16 skydivers faced this issue. In memory of the incident, for the next 2 years, other skydivers intentionally landed in Lake Erie wearing floating equipment. In 1972, the court held the Federal Aviation Authority responsible for the deaths of these 16 divers, and the B-25 pilot's license was permanently suspended. Additionally, a rule was established for skydivers, mandating that they should jump at least 50 kilometers away from any body of water. I hope you will like and share this video. Thank you. See you in the next Factastic video.